Senior Analyst at Mackenzie Intelligence Services, Stuart Ray. Hi again, Stuart. Now, I know that you've been examining these satellite images. What's happening in Mariupol?
What we're seeing, the Russians consolidating their position in Mariupol, tidying it up, getting rid of the buildings that have been demolished and are unsafe. They're being razed to the ground now. And there's been some fresh construction, such as we're seeing on the screen here. And this is very interesting. This obviously clearly states, or clearly shows the Russians' intent that they're not going anywhere. They're building some pretty impressive infrastructure in that city. What we're seeing here on this one, I've been looking at the imagery and previous imagery to this to see the development of this facility. This looks like a kind of a warehouse facility to me, probably a logistics storage depot or what have you. And the building to the left here looks like some kind of headquarters. We've got some pretty good security fencing around there. We can see the lighting on the security fencing. And over just to above the building there, we've got a separate wall or fence compound. It looks like to me like underground fuel storage, possibly for like heating oil or what have you in that facility. A comms tower and what have you in there. I think this is a headquarters building of some kind, possibly not necessarily military. We've got the ornamental trees placed around it to make it look pleasing. So it's quite an interesting facility that they're building there in amongst residential properties. Obviously, that causes a headache if it's going to be targeted for a military strike.
Yeah, but what can we discern from it? I mean, we can see what they're building, but what does it mean?
It's them consolidating their position, garrisoning the town, bringing more security in there. There is a kind of there is a partisan operation by the Ukrainians that are in Mariupol against the Russian forces in there. What is surprising is the security around this facility is weaker than I would expect, considering the environment they're in. I would expect, in the British Army, for an example, if we were in a place like this, we would have much more security, probably, reinforced guard posts along the fence line to actually secure that. But it's a statement of intent that the Russians aren't going anywhere and they're garrisoning the city to fully occupy it.
Let's talk about the city of Bakhmut, which we know has become an important symbol, hasn't it, for some of the Russian troops to try and demonstrate to Putin what they have been able to capture. What's happening there? Yeah,
Bakhmut it's operationally, strategically, it's not massively important, but it is symbolic. They've invested a lot of resources, manpower and equipment into trying to take Bakhmut. But impressively, the Ukrainians have managed to resist up until now. We're seeing probably an attempt to encircle the town of Bakhmut with an axis coming from the south and from the north to try and encircle it. More gains, although slight, in the south to take Bakhmut. What it does, it shows that the investment of resources has been for nothing. It also, to a degree, it protects their flank from the Ukrainian counteroffensive up in the north. And it opens up the corridors to move towards Sloviansk and Kramatorsk, which is obviously key in their aim to take over the Donetsk Oblast as part of the Donbass region.
Of course, the other pressure that can be brought to bear on Russia is financial, economic. And let's talk about this price cap that's been agreed by a number of different countries on Russian crude oil. How is that going to affect Russia's coffers to fund this war? In
the first place, it's not going to have a massive, dramatic effect on it. It's not going to have a catastrophic effect on our economy to support the war. It's going to be very difficult to police. It's up to the carriers of the crude oil to actually confirm that the end client has paid the correct price for that oil. But obviously there are other state actors that are going to buy the oil from Russia at whatever price they want to. They're more aligned to Russia than they are to the West and have a different stance over the war in Ukraine. So there's going to be ways and means that Russia will still be able to get revenue from the sale of the oil, but it will have a slight impact on it, but not the catastrophic impact, I think, that was hoped.
Because many of those countries had already started getting their oil from elsewhere.
That's right. The usual suspects, Iran, North Korea, India, the places that, are probably having a completely different stance to the war in Ukraine than the West are.
OK. All right, Stuart, thank you very much indeed.